Round, reference, and join. In the Round, Reference, and Join tab, we are going to do just that. We're going to round numbers and look at the difference between actually rounding numbers versus showing increasing or decreasing decimal places. We are going to reference cells and formulas from different tabs within a workbook, and we're also then going to learn how to join text together. So to start, let's go ahead and format this first table. And to do that, we're going to go into our formatting standards and grab, using the format painter, we're going to grab those formatting styles, go back to the tab, and I'm going to merge and center this one across. And because it was a different number of cells, I am going to have to merge and center those separately. But we'll go back to the formatting standards, grab the subheadings, and paint those across. And then I think the only other thing we have to do is add cell borders to our X values. Okay, in this first table, we are trying to show what rounding versus showing, which is increasing or decreasing decimal places, actually does. So we're going to reference the X value, and all that means is instead of typing it, we're going to reference it using a function. So a simple reference is simply typing equals and grabbing that value or that cell. That's all a reference is. Now it's asking us to reference and show two decimal places. And that's kind of hard to see, so if you double click, we can see here after I widen that column, it does say two decimal places. So I'm going to take that and I want to show two decimal places, so I'm simply hiding the other values. Now they're used behind the scenes, we just don't see them. So I'll copy this down. Okay. Conversely, if we take these values and we round them to a number, we actually use what's called the rounding function, it will truncate. It will round it to two decimal places and then chop the rest off and throw them away. So to do that, we will type equals and we're going to start a new function, which is the round function. I'm going to open a parenthesis, and again I'm going to read the syntax. It's saying first select the number. Well, what number do I want? Well, I'm grabbing the original X value, so we're comparing apples to apples. Round what number? This X value, and then it has a comma, so I'll type a comma. And how many digits, how many number of digits do we want to show? Well, in this case we have two decimal places. Close the parenthesis and type enter or return. I will copy this down, and this is a 9-0, so I will have to show this one, but if I increase the decimal places, you can see it is showing 2, but they're rounded to 2. Now, if I were to increase the number of decimal places, you can see they're all zeros now, so it actually just chopped off the remaining numbers. And if you want, so it looks like they're the same values. Okay, but let's see what happens when we take these values and we multiply them. So for this one, I'm going to take the formatted X, which is over here. So I typed equals, grab the X, and multiply that by 10. Now I'm going to change this so I only see two of the decimal places just for consistency's sake. Copy it down, and I get all of my values now. What happened? Well, we'll compare in just a second, but I can see one of these, 32.90, shouldn't give me 328.98. But you have to remember that there are many more decimal places behind here. It's really 32.8976541. Now let's look at the rounded values. So I'm going to type equals, take my rounded values, and multiply those by 10. Increase the decimal place so we're showing the same number. I'll copy this down. And now you can see that the values, or most of the values, are actually different. So I have 714.65 and 714.70. So while it looked like we were using the same numbers, we really weren't, because when you change the number of decimal places that you show or hide, again, Excel remembers all of them no matter what. It's only showing some of them, but it remembers all of them behind the scenes and it uses those in calculations. If you use the round function, it actually chops off the decimal places after what you've chosen. So we chose 2. The third decimal place and beyond, it just makes zeros. It ignores them. It completely gets rid of them. So keep that in mind when someone says, hey, just round it to. Rounding actually chops off the remaining decimal places, where if you're just increasing or decreasing decimal places shown, all of the values are actually stored behind. Now let's scroll down to part 2. And we're going to do the same thing with this. So let's go ahead and copy our formatting. And then I'll copy the formatting for these ones. Oops, actually this one's done a little bit differently. So, well, that worked out pretty well. But I want to merge these ones together all the way, so all the cells across until the gray ones. So I'm going to merge and center, but I actually want that to be left aligned. And I want the rest to appear the same way. So I'm going to click on my Format Painter, and now when I highlight all of these, including the empty cells, the ones I want to merge together, it will actually throw all that formatting in each and every one of those rows for me automatically without having to do each one separately or individually. So that's pretty handy. Okay, in Table 2 we have cell references, and this just want to show you that you can reference cells from anywhere. It doesn't have to be right in a single table or even a single tab. You can reference values from multiple cells within multiple tabs of any workbook. So this first one is saying, I want you to reference the Table 3 heading below. Okay, so I'm going to type equals and click on the heading below. And that will automatically give me whatever is in that cell. So the name of the heading, or the heading is 3, join text, or concatenate. That's all it is. And now if I were to change this heading for some reason, it would automatically update in here as well. So it does make it really handy. The second one says the total of first and last x value from the table above. Okay. So we want to add together the first and last value from the table above. You could do this multiple ways. I'm going to use the sum function because I want you to see that when you add cells using the sum function, they don't have to be in order. They don't have to be in the same place. In this case, I just want the first number, so I'm going to click on the first value. And as you can see down here in the syntax, it's saying, okay, grab the first number, and then you can type a comma. So if you're not dragging an entire series or range of cells, you can type a comma and pick another one. So I want to find the total of A16 and A20. Close my parentheses and press return. And that total gives me 112.73818. We're not going to format these, so just leave them as is. All right, for this third one, it's asking us to find the first date on the pattern fill tab. So whatever that value is, we want that value in this cell too. So I'm going to type equals. And this one's a little bit different because we're trying to find the first date, the value of the first date on the pattern fill tab. So I typed equals. I'm going to go to the pattern fill tab. And I want the first date. So the first date, well, yours will be completed and it will look nice. But I'm going to click here. And mine's showing a 43370. Yours, of course, will not because yours has been formatted nicely. Let's see, this is a date. So let's change this to I think it was a short date. And now when I format it over here, by the way, and I come back to my tab, it should automatically update. It didn't for some reason, so I'll go back and adjust it just so you can see what it will really look like once you've done yours. There we go. So now the formatting has pulled through since I re-referenced it. Now one thing I want you to note on here is when you click in this cell now, the formula up top looks a little bit funny. All right, all we did was reference a cell we're grabbing the value, but because that cell was in a different tab, Excel says, hey, by the way, you grab this from this tab, and it puts that tab in quotes, so you can see over here, so it's in the quotes here, and the name of the tab is to pattern fill. So it puts the name of the tab and then the cell that you referenced. It will always be this way when you grab or reference a cell from another tab within a workbook. It will always tell you the tab name and then the cell referenced from that tab. All right, So let's look at another one that does that. This one's asking us to find the product of the first x value above. So I'm typing equals, grabbing the first x value from above, and the first even integer on the pattern fill tab. We're finding the product, so we know that's multiplication. So the product of the first x value tab and the first even integer tab on the pattern fill tab. So let's go back to pattern fill and click on the first even integer. We want that value. So my first even integer is 2. And you can see my formula is telling me I'm grabbing A16 from my current tab. That was the tab on the round reference join. And I'm going to multiply that by the value of cell C17 on the pattern fill tab. And it gave me 142.9306. So it's okay to select and reference numbers among different tabs in a workbook. All right, for this one, it's asking us to find the sum of column A values in the order of operations tab. So I'm going to type equals, start the sum function, and I'm going to grab or reference all of the column A values in the order of operations tab. So go to order of operations, scroll down column A, and again yours will all look pretty here. Grab all of those, close my parenthesis so you can see here it's looking on the order of operations tab, and I'm selecting A27 through A33 from that tab and totaling them. Type equals, the total is 54. On this last one in the table, it's saying to find the average of the odd integers from the pattern fill tab. So I'm going to start my average function by typing average and an open parenthesis. And what do I want to average? Well, all of the odd integers from the pattern fill tab. So if I went back to the pattern fill tab, oops, this actually isn't going to work because mine isn't done yet. So yours will be, but I'm going to go back for one quick second, grab this pattern, copy it over, start that again, type equals average, go back to the pattern fill tab, average all of those cells now that they're put together, close my parenthesis, enter return, and now I know the average is 9. And again, I can tell I'm taking the average of cells I16 through O16 from the pattern fill tab. Okay, let's move on to table 3. Alright, before we scroll down, I'm going to go ahead and copy my header because we know we're going to do this again. Let's copy the formatting. I'm going to go up and copy the formatting for this one just because I don't want these all merged and centered. So grab my subheading and copy that. And now I have a whole bunch of random things. Okay, so let's take these 3. I will center those and put a border around them. Oh, and then this one, let's copy the subheadings from here. Put borders. Center line. Okay, now it's much easier to go through this. This looks way better. Okay. In table 3, it's asking us to join some text together. This is called concatenate or concatenation, and that simply means joining together. And this is something that you may not know you can do in Excel, but it comes in really handy in all sorts of scenarios. Many times you will have tables of data, and each little piece of data is in a separate cell. Sometimes you want to bring those together into a full cell. So for instance, if I want a first and last name together in one cell, but they're separately, I want to join them together. Well, it's pretty easy. To do that, you will simply type equals, click the first value you want, and then type an ampersand. This is how you join text together, with an ampersand. So I want the first name and the last name. And in this case I don't want a space, so I'm just going to leave it straight up as is. And this gives me gymnasium. I'll copy this down and that will get me the other two names as well. Perfect, now they're joined, but it doesn't really look that great because there isn't a space. So in the next column, we're going to take and put the full name together, but we want a space in between. And to do that, I'm going to type equals, grab the first name, and add to that, concatenate, join. In this case, we want a space first, and Excel recognizes anything in quotes as text. So I'm going to add a quote, and in this case I want a space, so I'm actually going to type a space and then end quote. So I have a space in between two quotes, and Excel sees that literally as text that has a space. So now I have Jim space, and then I need to add to that with an ampersand the last name, Nasium. So all I did was concatenate Jim plus space plus Nasium. I'll copy that down, which gives me Ivana Knapp and Humongous, with the spaces in between their first and last name. Now in this third column, we're going to take and we're going to put the last name, a comma, space, first name. So I'll type equals. I want the last name this time, and I want to add to that a comma and a space. So I'm going to start my text, and my text is going to have a comma and a space. So I'm actually typing comma, space. Put my second quote, ampersand to now add one more thing, and I'll add the first name, and type enter or return, and that gave me my last name, comma, space, first name. Copy this down, and now I have the other names in the same format as well. Another instance where you see this a lot is a street address. So we have the street, the separate city, the separate state, the separate zip. You see this a lot when you fill out forms online. But then things come to you all as a full address. Well, they've taken each of those data points, all those little pieces of data, and combined them together visually. So let's create a full address. So this is going to be equal to the street, and then in between the street and the city, there's a space. So we're going to add a space to that by typing a quote, space, quote. Now let's add the city. And we all know in an address, it's always city, comma, state. So now we're going to add to the city, quote, a comma, and a space. Another quote. And then add the state. And then, so we're going to add then the state to the zip. But there's a space in between the state and the zip, so we have to add a space in quotes, that text, and then add the zip code. And we'll see if we did this correctly. All right, we have 45 Main Street with a space in between Tampa and Florida, and a comma, and a space between Tampa, Florida, and the zip code. Perfect. All right, we did it correctly. If for some reason you didn't, simply double click back in the address and adjust. So if there wasn't a space after the comma, add a space. You can always go back and try it again. Troubleshoot yourself. All right, let's copy this down, and this one has 4, so it takes us all the way to 12 Maple Street in Ada, Ohio, 45810. And we've done it. We've taken all of these separate pieces of information and joined or concatenated them together.